All right, I've gone through the new CBK, all 8 domains. I'm going, spending this week updating my content to reflect the new stuff in the CBK, which really isn't much of anything, quite frankly. A little more detail on some terms, and I think the biggest thing I saw was stuff related to cloud and identifying cloud threats and um, Internet of Things. I saw that term. That was a new term I hadn't seen before in the content. Other than that, we're still pretty much right on track with what we're studying. So as soon as I get the updates completed, I'll let you guys know. All right. If there's no questions or comments, we'll get right to it. Question number 1. After weeks of research, a data processing manager concludes that her team has been inputting data incorrectly into the central database and practicing erroneous processing. Because of these findings, her database is said to be what?
Ready.
Data incorrectly. All right, go for it.
A.
Alpha. Contaminated. Database is said to be contaminated. Anybody disagree?
No.
All right. Number 2, Sam is a manager that's responsible for overseeing the development and the approval of the business continuity plan. He needs to make sure that his team is creating a correct and all-inclusive loss criteria when it comes to potential business impacts. Which of the following should not be included in this criteria? Business continuity plan.
Ready.
Okay, anyone else?
Ready.
I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, go for it.
Delta.
D.
Delta, everyone says D. A decrease in operational expenses. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty obvious there.
No, D is 2, right? Loss of competitive advantage.
D is number 3, which is decrease in operational expenses. A loss in competitive advantages is number 2. You definitely don't want to lose that. Your business continuity plan would help to ensure that you don't lose competitive advantages. Is that where you're getting at?
Can you increase the font size of your page of your browser?
Is it different than what it used to be? Because it's the exact same as how it used to be.
Smaller.
Is it small for everyone else?
Yeah, it looks smaller here.
Is it smaller for anyone else? All right, let me see if I can do something here real quick.
Okay.
Donald, is this a tool or are you running it from your browser?
Running it from our browser.
Then all you have to do is change the zoom settings on your browser.
Yeah.
There we go.
Much better.
Is that better?
Yep. Or if you want to take it one notch higher, that's fine too. Perfect. Thank you.
Is that better? Okay. Yeah. I wonder if, I don't know if anything's changed on my browser since we've been doing this, but yeah, that's good to know. Thank you. All right. Number 3, the network perimeter concept restricts access from segment to segment via what? We saw this last week.
I'm ready.
All right, go for it.
Alpha.
Alpha, choke points. Yeah, we saw this one last week. Number 4, instant messaging technology is extremely popular in the corporate world, but it brings with it a host of security problems. What is not true of instant messaging?
Ready.
Yeah, we haven't seen this one before. Anyone ready? Go for it.
Ready.
Charlie. Ready. C. Charlie.
Yeah, most Charlie is most instant messaging applications have encryption functionality, but few users enable it. Yeah, it's my understanding that instant messaging uses the UDP protocol instead of TCP, so there's no three-way handshake, and it's faster. Instant messaging is a fast communication medium, so you want it to be faster. I'm not aware of cryptography though. Integrated directories are target lists.
I think that comes as active directories, which are where all users that are part of active directories become part of your internal instant messaging.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's try this. This is the first one for us, so we'll see on the back end. Number 5, a passphrase is turned into a virtual password. What exactly is a virtual password?
I'm ready.
Anyone else? All right, go for it.
Charlie.
A hashed version of the passphrase. Man, I have not heard of this before. I think we had something like this in the past few weeks, but I don't recall what it was. I know that if you most password files are hashed, and so a hacker would take a lot of words out of the dictionary or the Bible or some other source like that and hash them with an algorithm, with a hashing algorithm, with many different hashing algorithms, and it's called a rainbow table. And if you gain access to someone else's password file that's been hashed, if your hash value from your rainbow table matches the hash value that's listed in their password file, then you'll know how to you'll know what the password is. All right. Anyone else second that notion for Charlie?
Yeah, never heard of this one before, so
Yeah.
it sounds good.
The only thing I know that with respect to passwords, passphrases, password files, hashing is often involved. So I'm not sure about this one, but I'll go for it. All right, number 6. What is a pretext? Okay, yeah, I think we've seen this one before. Any takers on this?
Yeah, I was gonna say Charlie.
Yeah, Alpha and Charlie are similar.
Yeah.
Charlie, though, says a scenario presented to an employee by an attacker with the intent of socially engineering the employee to violate security controls of the attack on the attackers. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. Although pretext, Alpha says that management is doing this like a what do you call it when you send your own employees a phishing attack just to see who will respond, so you can get an idea of how secure your program is.
Is that for a baseline gathering process?
Not, I wouldn't say baseline, but
More so employee awareness.
yeah,
Yeah, for employee
training.
awareness.
awareness training. I'm kind of leaning to Alpha because of that. To socially engineer employees into better performance. Well, I wouldn't say performance of their duties, performance of their ability to not respond to phishing attacks.
Yeah.
So is there a concept as pretext, or is this they're looking at it more from like the actual meaning?
I think it is a social engineering attack word. I think that's where I think Charlie kind of makes sense.
Yeah, pretext is a term I don't have in my content, but I'm going to infer here and go with Alpha, although Charlie does seem pretty inviting.
Yeah, don't do it, Donald. You said it's the better performance of their duties. You wouldn't use pretext to get them to work better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But-
mean, if you look at from management perspective, it pretty much looks it may be an issue with even from an HR perspective.
So you guys are leaning towards Charlie. Was that you, Lynn?
Yes, Charlie.
All right, I'm going to take Super Lynn's advice on this one. I'm going to take her advice to follow my own advice. And we'll see on the back end. All right, number 7, Bob needs to test the running behavior of a new product a team has been working on in order to ensure that all user inputs have been properly validated prior to being processed. Which of the following terms is used to describe this activity? Ensure all
Ready.
user inputs have been properly validated. All right, go for it.
See,
Yeah, fuzzing usually involves inputting a large amount of data incorrectly to see how the application or the system will respond, to see if it can accept inputs that it doesn't expect. I don't see anything else that seems better than this one. So, anybody disagree? All right, yeah, this is probably a more difficult one than we've had in a while. Number 8, when work product satisfies real world requirements and concepts, this is known as when work
ready.
product satisfies real world requirements. Go for it.
Ready.
Alpha.
Validation. Yep, we've seen this one before. Validate. Number 9, once a year, a full evaluation is conducted to evaluate the effectiveness of existing security within a company. Controls are evaluated and a final report is created. Who handles this kind of activity?
Ready?
Yep, go for it.
Charlie.
I think this is a layup. Yep, system auditor or systems auditor. That would be an internal auditor. Number 10, VoIP integrated with TCP/IP protocol suite has brought about immense security challenges because it allows malicious users to bring their TCP/IP experience into this relatively new platform where they can probe for flaws in both the architecture and the VoIP systems. Which of the following is one of the most serious concerns when implementing VoIP?
Ready.
Yeah, I think we've seen this before. I don't recall exactly. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
That was Alpha.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I was gonna say Bravo.
Eesh.
I mean, if we're following the right method, it would be Charlie would be number 1, but I'll say him getting in, having authorized to see certain things. I mean, it would be the authorization. Really authorized to see the probing different flaws. I think the author having proper authorization to certain parts of the architecture. That makes any sense.
I think we chose authentication last time. I don't recall if we got it right or wrong.
Yeah, and also in the AAA model, authentication comes first.
Well, yeah, AAA implies identification is first. It doesn't. I think for marketing purposes, they just wanted author, and auditing.
Yes, but then, with identification, even though they produce a username, it's the authentication which actually gives them access and authorization. It leads them to authorization. So, you know, I don't. I think I'll stick to A.
Alpha. All right. Anyone else? Man, I really don't know here.
I'm going to concur with that, Alpha.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to agree only because with VoIP technology, really all you would need to do is authenticate yourself and then you can make your calls. I don't think you'd be accessing resources that would require authorization. I just don't recall if VoIP requires authentication or not, but we'll see. Number 11, John's company brought security liability insurance covering the cost of equipment, only to find that the policy did not fully compensate for the damage done after thieves broke in and stole the data center equipment. Because the loss in productivity had not been factored in, what kind of risk did management fail to consider? This is a new one for us too. It's a bit tricky. My first, I'm initially drawn to Charlie, delayed loss, although the wording of the question I don't think completely fits that
I'm
term.
ready.
Yeah, what do you think there?
I
I'm going
concur.
Alpha. Yeah, I'm going alpha.
Alpha. Was
I
that,
say Charlie.
you say Charlie? Anyone else?
My pick is alpha as well.
Tangible risk.
Yeah, I chose alpha because something tangible, something physical, hardware, equipment, not anything that's intangible. So it seems like that would be the more logical choice, alpha.
But loss in productivity is not. It's not a hard measure, right?
Yeah, I'm torn between Alpha and Charlie. All right, Derek, I'm going to roll with you on tangible.
Well, I say it's Charlie because it says the loss in productivity has not been factored in. Loss of productivity would not be a tangible risk.
Yeah, intangible. Yep.
But the loss in productivity occurred because there was a loss in tangible equipment. So
But
I'm
it's a
thinking
matter
loss
of
of productivity is just a result, and this question is really getting at the
Yeah.
tangible equipment.
So the insurance coverage covers the cost of the equipment. So once they replace the equipment, the time taken to, I'm thinking more of when you think about it from a disaster recovery perspective, the work time loss or the work recovery time. Like, once you get your equipment, the time it takes to recover the data. And so I'm seeing that as a delayed loss. I like, but the tangible also makes
Yeah.
sense.
These questions we're seeing tonight are very indicative of what you'll see on the exam. 2 you can eliminate, and then you're left with 2, and you really could justify a reason for either of the 2 that are remaining. All right, I'm gonna go with tangible just because I'm familiar with that term, and but I'm not sure. We'll see. I'm not feeling too good about this one tonight, guys, but we'll see. All right, number 12. When a system officially permits access to a file or program, what is it doing? This is a layup.
Ready?
Ready.
For it.
Bravo.
Bravo. Authorizing. D, author, author. Number 13. What is plenum space? This is a layup as well.
Ready?
Go for it.
Alpha.
Alpha. Open space above drop ceilings and below raised floors. I used to think it was one or the other, but it is both. Number 14, Madison is putting together an incident response team. During her interviewing process, she should target individuals with skills in all of the following except.
Ready?
Incident response. Okay, go for it.
Alpha.
Anybody disagree? Yeah, I agree with that. Presentations is not required skill. Number 15, Acme Incorporated. All right, this is Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner cartoon here. Acme Incorporated has the choice of rolling out products that are based on DAC, MAC, or RBAC models, discretionary access control, mandatory access control, or role-based access control. Their security policy indicates that authentication will be identity-based. So which of the following would be the best model to use? Their security policy indicates that authentication will be identity-based.
ready.
That RBAC might be role or rule based instead of role based.
Yeah, I don't know what D is, BAC.
Yeah, that could be a distractor.
I'm ready.
All right, go for it.
Already.
Charlie.
I'm gonna go with B.
I concur.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards either Alpha or Bravo, Mac or DAC. I think I'm leaning more towards discretionary access control because individual users or owners of files or folders can, at their discretion, grant access to those resources so that the identity of that individual, I guess. But then mandatory access control, there's a central authority who determines what subjects can access which objects.
Yeah, I was going with Alpha only because mandatory access control is one of the most stringent, and it's used with DoD.
So would that central authority be making access control decisions based on the identity of subjects?
Try to think of Mac as based on your security clearance, and that will help with the confusion.
Yeah, the key differences between Mac and DAC are that Mac you have a central authority who, like you said, Lynn, defines security levels for subjects and classification levels for objects, and centrally determines what subjects are going to access which objects. But discretionary access control, it's not a central authority. It's each individual has the ability to assign authorization to their resources. It's hard to say. I'm oh, this is not a fun one tonight. I'm gonna go with DAC, but man,
I concur.
yeah,
I concur.
we're 50-50 on these tonight. Oh goodness. All right, 16. What is the network time protocol and why is it important in security assessments?
I'm ready.
Yeah, we've seen this one. Go for it.
Delta.
Delta. It is a client server protocol for system time synchronization, and it's important to ensure that system logs have timestamps that are consistent across all critical systems. There's several NIST 800-53 security controls related to this very one. All right, 17 are physical security controls such as fences, guards, dogs, badges, etc., deployed on the perimeter sufficient to provide physical protection. So, why? If not, why not? So having these physical things, are they sufficient to provide physical protection?
Just to give you a hint, the answer is automatically no because of defense in depth. So we already know it's a no. The second part you have to figure out on your own.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
I'm ready too.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, go for it.
Delta.
Delta.
Yeah, Delta.
Yep, I agree. Thanks for that, Lynn. That's perfect reasoning. All right, 18. With respect to data loss prevention, what term describes the ability to quickly recover from a crisis and to avoid catastrophe, even in the face of an ongoing breach? We've seen this one before, so lay up.
Ready.
Go for it.
Charlie.
Charlie, DLP resiliency is the key word. 19. Widgets Incorporated has decided to implement an industry standard for its asset security, but has discovered that it simply doesn't have some of the systems that certain provisions of the standard explicitly address. Consequently, Widgets has chosen to ignore those provisions. This is known as what? Yeah, we've seen something similar to this before, and we get tripped up.
Ready.
All right, go for it.
Ready.
Alpha.
A.
Yeah, and see that's what I chose last time, and it was not correct.
I think it's B, lack of due diligence.
Yes. It is B.
It's actually Charlie, scoping
Scoping standard.
a standard. So when you're selecting your baseline set of security controls from NIST 800-53, after you select that baseline, if you decide to change the wording of one of those controls, that's tailoring. But this one is suggesting that you're not going to accept one, you're going to mark one of those controls as not applicable. They're choosing to ignore this provision because they believe it's not applicable, and that is scoping. That's what you do before you would consider tailoring. You select your baseline. Of that baseline, what controls do we think are applicable and not applicable? And that is scoping. All right, 20. Which role is accountable for information security?
Ready.
Ready.
Go for it.
Ready.
B.
Yes.
Bravo.
Bravo. Yeah.
Bravo.
Yep, senior management. You could be pulled to security management, but senior management is ultimately accountable. They can delegate responsibility to the security management team, but they are still ultimately accountable. You can't delegate accountability. You can delegate responsibility, but not accountability. You're still ultimately accountable. Number 21, which of the following computer components dictates when data is processed by the system's processor? Dictates when data is processed by the system's processor. So the two components of the CPU, one is the traffic cop, one is the calculator.
Ready.
Go for it.
Alpha.
Alpha, control unit. Control unit and the arithmetic logic unit are the two components of the CPU. Control unit is the traffic cop, determines when processes will be able to access the processor. The arithmetic logic unit is essentially the calculator. 22, a network engineer just informed Bob that the parity data for their RAID system has been corrupted. Which of the following best describes the output of this type of situation? All right. Not sure if we've seen this one before. Anybody ready?
Yeah, I think.
Yes. B.
Actually, I think we've seen
Yeah.
something similar to this before. I'm leaning towards Bravo as well. Anyone else?
Bravo.
So if you have RAID and the parity data has been corrupted, what essentially has happened, Bravo says the data from other drives cannot be used to rebuild lost or corrupted data.
I agree.
Yep. All right. 23, establishing data classification levels within a company is essential as part of an overall security program. Of the roles listed, who would be the best choice to sponsor a data classification program?
Ready.
All right, go for it.
Ready?
Charlie.
Charlie,
Yes.
Chief Information Officer, highest on the totem pole in terms of information. The information owner will classify the data, but the Chief Information Officer is at a higher level than that information owner. Number 24, calculating the time and effort needed to break an encryption process is referred to as its what? This is a new one, but this is a layup for our content. Go for it.
I'm ready.
Charlie.
Charlie, work factor. What will increase the work factor in an encryption process?
Key link.
The not necessarily just the key. Well, the number of bits in the key will increase the number of possible keys that can be chosen. So the number of bits in the key will increase the key space, which is the number of possible keys that could be chosen. And that would increase the work factor, the amount of work that would be required to identify which key was actually used. So a 128-bit encryption key versus a 258-bit encryption key. The 256-bit encryption key would have a higher work factor because the key space will be larger. All right, 25. When is the emergency state actually over for a company?
Ready?
Ready.
Yep, layup. Go for it.
Ready?
Bravo.
Bravo. When all operations and people are moved back into the primary site. This is a concern. All right. Oh no, I'm squinting an eye here on this one. Oh wow, how about that?
Wow.
One of our best scores ever, and I'm squinting an eye on it. I wasn't too sure about this one. All right, a database affected by data input errors or erroneous processing is considered to be contaminated. That was easy. Loss criteria must be applied to individual threats that were identified. The criteria should include at least the following, but decrease in operational expenses is a good thing. The network perimeter concept recognizes the need to separate sensitive networks from non-sensitive networks and accomplishes this by using choke points to block segment-to-segment access. Instant messaging applications rarely have encryption capabilities built in. Scripts can be used against the program. Most can be easily provisioned to bypass firewall controls. Buddy lists serve as instant target lists for attackers. But that's a key point there, that most instant messaging applications rarely have encryption capabilities. Yeah, we chose this one because it had hashing. This was my fault. So let's see here. The length and format that is required for a specific system or application. Wow. I don't think I would have chosen that one. So a virtual password is the length and format that is required by the application. The application could have a memory segment of 128 bits to store your virtual password, while another application may have a memory segment of 256 bits. The virtual password is just the result of your passphrase after it's been hashed or encrypted and converted into the format that is required for a specific application. Well, all right then.
It gives you actually, interestingly, it gives you one, again, this is a guess model, but if you look, the answer A is a standout from the other three, right? So it's the odd man out. Doesn't have the word passphrase in it. You notice that answer,
Yeah,
right? That's a unique
yeah, I knew
way.
hashing was involved there, but I'll take that as an educated guess. All right, what is pretext? Pretexting is a social engineering technique designed to leverage an employee's trust relationship and usual flows in order to convince them to do something that is both unusual and detrimental. So we're kind of leaning towards whether the company management was doing this or whether an attacker was doing it, and it is an attacker. Fuzzing is a dynamic analysis technique that's designed to test the program's resilience against malformed and unexpected inputs, usually a large amount of unexpected inputs. Validation ensures that the final product meets a real-world requirement and is providing the necessary function to the end user. System auditors are responsible for providing continual feedback to senior management on the overall effectiveness of the security controls. This should be a part of their normal job duties, internal auditors. Yeah, we guessed this one correctly. We're back and forth on this one. SIP-based signaling suffers from the lack of encrypted call channels and authentication of control signals. Attackers can tap into the SIP server and client communication to sniff out login IDs, passwords / pins, and phone numbers. Yeah, I think our reasoning skills are sharpening because we weren't sure about these. So management failed to consider the delayed loss risk, the productivity risk that occurred after the tangible equipment had been taken. So all those things we were considering, insurance, tangible, those are key words, but not the most important. Without equipment, work stops. The interruption in productivity can far outweigh the tangible loss, and this, coupled with the public profile effects, can prove devastating for companies. Maintenance risk. Why do they have these dashes after these words? Maintenance risk, the cost it takes to maintain systems, is not a direct factor in this scenario, nor is insurance risk. However, both may contribute to delayed loss. Yeah, I was leaning towards that just because I was familiar with that term delayed loss. But for me, delayed loss is if you have an exposure and you're not aware of it until some time later, just how much was taken or just how much you were compromised. This question doesn't really get to that, in my opinion, but okay. When is a system officially permits access to? Yeah, this was a layup. Authorizing and authenticating are very close in meaning, but there is a distinct difference. Authentication is a process of verifying the identity of the subject requesting access. Then after you gain access, authorization is the granting of permissions to different resources. Plenum space, this was the easy one. Space above drop ceiling and below raised floors. The basic skill set of an incident response team member includes technical recognition and response skills, while presentation skills would certainly be viewed as a plus. It is not a basic requirement. Man, we got this one too. Discretionary access control systems grant or deny access based on the identity of the subject. The identity can be a user identity or group membership. Mac mandatory access models make access decisions based on classification, clearance, and need to know. Lane, I think you were speaking of that. Rule-based is a set of rules that are applied to all subjects no matter what their identity is. DAC is always an identity-based model, and BAC is a distractor, like we assumed. Yeah, RBAC, I've heard of that referred to as role-based or rule-based. Whoops. Yeah, the NTP provides a hierarchical architecture for client-server time synchronization, which is critical to ensure that audit logs that are being generated, logging activities performed by multiple disparate systems provide records with consistent timestamps. No single layer of controls, physical or otherwise, is ever truly sufficient. That was Super Lin again. And then resiliency was a key word here. We've seen this one a ton of times. Yeah, scoping is a process of reducing the breadth of provisions within a standard that must be considered in practice by an organization in light of the actual technologies it deploys. So if you decide, what's the other word? There's tailoring and then there's supplementing. So if you choose your baseline based on your FIPS 199 categorization, which is based on the types of information on the system, you choose your baseline set of security controls. If you decide that baseline is not enough, you can add in new controls. You can supplement in new controls. Or the ones that you've selected, you can modify them a bit, which is tailoring. But if you decide to exclude something that's a part of your baseline, then that's scoping. Senior management is ultimately accountable for all organizational risks. As security is an organizational risk, senior management is ultimately accountable. They can't delegate accountability. They're still, even if they delegate responsibility, they're still accountable. The control unit determines when data instructions can be sent on to the CPU for processing. The ALU, arithmetic logic unit, is a component of the CPU that performs mathematical and logical operations. Yep, data from other drives. This is dealing with corrupted data from your RAID. So RAID provides fault tolerance for hard drives and can improve system performance. Redundancy and speed are provided by breaking up data and writing it across several disks so different disk heads can work simultaneously to retrieve the requested information. Control data are also spread across each disk. This is called parity. So you can have striping of information across multiple disks and not have fault tolerance. You only have fault tolerance when you have striping. When you have parity. Parity alone is not fault tolerance. Parity with striping with parity gives you fault tolerance. 23, although the security officer plays a huge role in data classification, the initiative should be championed by an executive with the highest rank whose participation will have the greatest influence throughout the company. CEO, CIO should always champion this, but in this case, yeah, they gave us the CIO, Chief Information Officer. An attacker's work factor consists of the amount of time and effort needed to break a crypto system. Algorithms with high work factors are less vulnerable to cryptanalysis attacks. And again, they have a high work factor because they have a large number of bits and the key space is larger. You've recovered operations when all operations and people are moved back into their primary site. This state of vulnerability is not over until the company is back operating, and it's in this fashion. The key for me there is back at their primary site, not at the alternate site. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. Good job. Thanks for all your input. Thanks for hanging out with us. Yep, appreciate your
Good night.
information. Take care, guys.